Good. Okay. Well, thanks for joining for this chat. Again, I think we're still figuring out a little bit when we're going to do these. I think most times the thought was we'd do them Friday morning. Today's Thursday afternoon. I think maybe we will switch to doing them in the afternoons. It just depends on trying to figure out basically when are most people available to watch. And it sounds like maybe this time is just a little bit better for a lot of people than others. So we'll kick off here in just a minute. Before I give my spiel, and we're going to talk about restoring America's manufacturing base, let me just sort of give a little bit of a reminder of how I'm going to do these things. So basically, I want to go through each of the issues on the issue page just to go through why I care about the things that I care about. I think you may very well hear dogs howling right now. Which is, I'm actually home today, which is good and unusual sometimes, but our dogs often howl at ambulances that are passing by, which because they're idiotic, but whatever. Anyway, so on the question of America's declining manufacturing base, I just want to talk a little bit about why this issue matters to me, why I think it's so important. And I think honestly there's an economic opportunity piece of this, but there's also a cultural piece of this and a self-sufficiency piece of this that I think is just really important for our country. So let me give you just a little bit, a little bit of sorry, I'm being told to tweet out the link here. So let me do that. But while I tweet here, we can talk about America's declining manufacturing base. So one of the most exciting endorsements that I've received thus far is from Bob Lighthizer. And Bob Lighthizer is was Trump's U.S. trade representative. And this is not working the right way. There we go. So Bob Lighthizer was Trump's trade representative, and Bob is this really just an incredibly brilliant guy, but a person who's been talking about the decline of American manufacturing probably for 30 or so years. And one of the things that Bob has talked a lot about is that America's manufacturing crisis is really not just about middle-class American jobs. That obviously matters a great deal. We want people to be able to work and support a family on a single income, but it's also about America's long-term prosperity and self-sufficiency. And so, one of the things you heard 20 or 30 years ago, unfortunately, you even heard it 5 years ago from bipartisan leaders as well, the reason we need to accept the decline of American manufacturing is that eventually, Pippi, come here. Everyone want to meet Pippi? Pippi, come here. This is Pippin. This is the Howler. There he is. He's a very good dog, though. Hi, buddy. All right, get out of here. So one of the reasons we care about the decline of America's manufacturing base is that you can't separate the making of things from the designing of things. So people would say, we don't care if we lose all of our manufacturing jobs to the Chinese, so long as we are, designing things, creating the next level of products that are going to be made here in the United States. So maybe the Chinese will make the rubber duckies, but the United States will make the more advanced products here in America. And that will be good for our workers. It'll be good for our consumers. It'll also be good for the Chinese. They'll become a democratic oasis because of it. Of course, that didn't pan out. But the part that really didn't pan out for America and America's citizens is that you can't totally ignore the connection between making things and designing things. So if you make all of the components of the iPhone in China, well, it turns out that the people who are making those components start to get pretty good at designing those things too. And so the people who are making things in China start to become better designers. So the promise that America would be at the forefront of design and new technology hasn't totally panned out, because a lot of those manufactured products start to give those countries that are manufacturing things an advantage in design and in new technology as well. Another thing that happened is that the Chinese stole a lot of our technology. And so if America is going to let China make the rubber duckies, but America is going to make the advanced robotics, for example, one of the things you need is the technology to make that advanced robotics. You need to have an edge. You need to be able to ensure that if somebody else is stealing your stuff, you have an ability to go after them and to respond to it. Well, that didn't happen. The Chinese stole a lot of our technology, so we got squeezed from both ends. They were making some of the simpler products that got offshored. They were also making a lot of the more advanced products. And so what that meant is that America's economy, two big things happened to it. First of all, we lost a lot of those good middle class jobs. The people making things, the people manufacturing things lost their jobs. Estimates vary, but we probably lost millions of jobs from the late 90s through the mid 2000s just to China. We of course lost more jobs to other countries, and we lost more jobs over a longer period. Then the second thing that happened is that our economy became a little bit less innovative, a little bit less advanced, and that ultimately means our living standards didn't improve as much as they should have, and we became a little less self-sufficient in the process. So, you think about what happened last year. We're in the height of the COVID pandemic, and the leader of the Communist Chinese is threatening the United States with a loss of critical manufacturing in pharmaceuticals. So think about, I have a 4-year-old, I have an 18-month-old, so I want to go to the doctor and get my kid an antibiotic. An antibiotic, by the way, that was probably invented in the United States of America, but I can't get that because the Chinese are not giving us the necessary ingredients to manufacture those antibiotics in the first place. Is that real prosperity or real freedom if the products that were invented in the United States you can't even give your own children access to? I don't think so. But think about computer chips. If you listen to a lot of economic conversation today, you'll hear a lot about the shortage of chips. And it's not just the chips in our iPads or our iPhones or our computers. It's also the chips that are in our household appliances. It's the chips that are in our cars. Most things run on computer chips, including a lot of advanced defense technology, a lot of advanced weapon systems. If we don't have access to computer chips, we may very well lose our ability to make critical goods for ourselves. And I think that both of those things have happened. Basically, we can't get products that we need here in America. We've lost a lot of middle-class jobs. Our entire country has become weaker in the process. Now, that's sort of the economic piece of it. And before I take questions, I'll take questions in about a minute or two. I just want to remind people, go ahead and throw your questions on the Facebook page. We'll sort of, try to get to as many as we possibly can over this 30-minute Facebook Live video. But I want to talk about how important this was for American culture, because I think that one of the things we lost when we lost a lot of those middle class jobs is we lost a lot of stable, intact families in the process. And so, one of the things that makes folks on the left very uncomfortable, and honestly, if it makes them uncomfortable, it means we should probably be talking about it more, is that a lot of people who worked in manufacturing were men. Not everybody, of course. A lot of women worked in manufacturing too, but a disproportionate share of the manufacturing jobs were jobs that men were working in. Well, what happens when all those jobs disappear? Well, you have a lot of fathers, a lot of husbands, a lot of people who were important, sources of stability in our families. When those jobs just disappeared, it had a really transformative and negative effect on family formation. You had a lot of children who lost their dads, a lot of families that got torn apart by divorce and by dissolution, and you had just a lot of communities where 30, 40 years ago they had stable, engaged fathers and husbands, and now all of a sudden they don't have that. And so this decline in manufacturing, I think, has had a transformative effect on traditional American culture, because you've got a lot of homes right now that don't have enough dads in them. You've got a lot of families that don't have access to a father figure. You've got a lot of families and people who have suffered because of the decline of that old line manufacturing economy, and that's an important piece of this. Of course, it's not just bad for the children, it's bad for women, it's bad for the men, it's bad for everybody when you have a whole segment of your society that's unable to get gainful employment, and that's what we've had, unfortunately, over a country the past 20 or 30 years. This has, I hate to say it, been a bipartisan thing. Bipartisan leaders from both parties, really until 2016, until Donald Trump started talking about us losing to China, us losing to Mexico, really talking about the decline of old line manufacturing in this country. No one was really talking about the real harms and the catastrophic consequences of the decline of America's manufacturing base. But I think it's important. It's one of the most critical long-term issues we face in this country. It's why it's a hallmark of the things that I'm running on in this Senate campaign. So with that, I'll shut up and start taking some questions.